Okay, hello everyone. Okay, so the next program in chapter 4 is dice game. Alright, so write a program that plays a simple dice game between the computer and the user. When the program runs, a loop should repeat 10 times. Each iteration of the loop should do the following. Generate a random integer in the range of 1 through 6. 1 through 6. This is the value of the computer's die. Generate another random integer in the range of 1 through 6. This is the value of the user's die. The die with the highest value wins. In case of a tie, there's no winner for that particular roll of the dice. As the loop iterates, the program should keep count of the number of times the computer wins and the number of times that the user wins. After the loop performs all its iterations, the program should display who was the grand winner, the computer or the user. Okay. So basically, it's going to be a simple die game. When you run the program, the program is going to, let's say, roll a die. Okay, it's going to come up with random numbers for the computer and then for the user, and whoever has it's going to do this 10 times. It's going to roll a die 10 times, and whoever has the higher number in that round wins that round, and the program should keep track of all that. And then at the end of the 10 rounds or the 10 turns, the program should display who was the grand winner. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. I'll go ahead and create the class, and I'll call it dice game. And the main method. Okay. All right. So, the first thing I see is we're going to be creating random integers. Okay. You're going to be using you're going to create random stuff. All right. So in order to use or create random numbers, we need to import the random class so that the program can have access to it, right? So to import it, I'm going to type in import java.util.random. Now with a random class, we need to go ahead and create a random object so we can use that random object to generate random numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and create a random object. I'm going to go ahead and call it random. I'm creating a new random object in memory, like this. So now I have a random object, so I can go ahead and use it. So let's see. When the program runs, a loop should repeat 10 times. Each iteration of the loop should do the following. So we know we have to create a loop and then use it. So when the program runs, a loop should repeat 10 times. So that means we're going to create a loop that runs 10 times. So for this one, I'm going to create a for loop that runs 10 times. And each of the 10 times is going to be how many times, how many rounds. You can think of it as how many tens or how many rounds. I'll go ahead and I'll name it tens. Okay, tens. You can name it rounds. So I'm going to create the total number of tens in a variable, right? So I'm going to create an integer variable, and I'm going to call it total number of turns or total turns. You can name it like that. Okay, but I'll say total number of turns. Well, I'll just say total turns. I'll call it total number of turns. All right. Okay, so in total number of turns, I'm going to initialize it to 10 because they're going to be 10 turns. Okay, 10 turns, 10 total turns. So I'm going to start from 10:1. I'm going to initialize turn int. I'm going to initialize a variable int that I'm going to create right now. I'm going to call it 10, and I'm going to initialize it to 1 because we're starting from 10:1 all the way to 10. So as long as 10 is less than or equal to total number of turns, okay, then do what's in the loop, and before you come back up and run the loop again and check to see whether 10 is less than or equal to total number of turns, add 1 to turn, so turn plus plus. All right, so we're starting from 1, and we're checking to see if that 10, which is less than or equal to the total number of turns, which is 10. If it's not, do what's in the loop, add 1 to it, and then check again. So now 10 becomes 2, and then it checks to see if that 10, which is 2, right? The second time this loop iterate, it checks to see if that turn is less than or equal to total number of turns. And if it's not, it's going to do what's in the loop, add 1 to it, and then come and check again. So it's basically starting from 1 to 10. All right. So now we've been able to create a loop that runs 10 times, right? So let's see what we have to do in each time. It says each iteration of the loop should do the following. Generate a random integer in the range of 1 through 6. This is the value of the computer's die. Okay, so first let's create a variable that's going to store the computer's die. So I'm going to create an int variable. I'm going to call it computer die, like this, computer die. I wrote computer dice. All right, computer die. That's going to represent the value of the computer's die each iteration or each turn. So generates a random integer in the range of 1 through 6. This is the computer's die. So we need to generate a random integer in the range of 1 through 6. We have the random object here, random. So we can use a random object to create that. All right. So I'm going to call random.nextInt. And if I leave it like this, this is going to generate a random integer in the range of negative 2 billion. It's not exactly 2 billion, but it's around that range. Negative 2 billion to positive 2 billion. It's about around 2 point something. But it's in that range, negative 2 billion to positive 2 billion. And that's a big range. But the program says we should create a random integer in the range of 1 through 6. All right. So first I'm going to go ahead and in these parentheses I'm going to pass in the value 6. Now 6 is going to, basically this is going to generate a random integer in the range of 0 to 5. 6 is not included. So 6 is not included. So 6 is like the limit, not included. So I'm starting from 0 to 5, right? Yeah. Actually, and again, I mentioned that if it's like this, it generates from a random integer from between negative 2 billion and positive 2 billion, right? I think it's from 0 to I think it's from from 0 to I need to cross check, but I think it's from 0 to positive 2 billion, or it could be negative and positive, right? But I know that range is either from 0 to positive 2 billion or negative 2 billion to positive 2 billion, right? Okay, but the range we want, I said 6, so I'm going to undo this and type 6. All right, so 6 again is going to give us numbers from 0 to 5, 6 not included. It starts from 0 to 5, 6 not included. All right, but it said we should create a random integer from in the range 1 through 6, right? So in order to do that, I'm going to shift it by 1. And what this is going to do is, initially I had 0 to 5. But when I shift it, all I'm doing is it's like I'm moving the position of I'm moving the range by 1. So that means I'm moving 0 to 1 and I'm moving 5 to 6 because I'm shifting it by 1. Still the range is the same. There are 5 in between. Okay, 5 elements in between. So basically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean 1 to 6 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? It's basically the difference is 5. Right? That's what I'm trying to say. The difference is 5. So again, when I just pass in the number 6, it's giving me 0 to 5, right? If I said plus 2, then I'm plus 2, then I'm shifting it by 2. I'm shifting the position by 2. The range still stays the same, but I'm shifting it by 2. So 0 becomes 2. I'm basically adding 2 to the starting and the ending, shifting the range. So 0 becomes 2 and 5 becomes 7. Okay, but what I'm doing now is 6 gives me 0 to 5. I'm adding 1 to it, right? So 0 to 5. Okay, which when you shift it by 1, right? So you're shifting 0 to 1 and then 5 to 6. So basically this statement is going to generate a random integer from 1 to 6. And that is going to be the computer die. Remember, computer die. The second thing we have to do in each iteration is to generate another random integer in the range of 1 through 6. This is the value of the user's die. So I'm going to do the same thing for the user's die. I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it here. And I'm just going to change the value from computer die to user die. So now computer die is going to have a value and user die is going to have a value. The die with the highest value wins. In case of a tie, there is no winner for that particular roll of the dice. Okay, so we have to create an if statement to compare these two dice to see which one is greater, right? And if there's a tie, we don't do anything. If it's greater, we keep track of it. Over here it says, as a loop iterates, the program should keep track of the number of times the computer wins and the number of times the user wins. Okay, so let's go ahead and compare computer die with user die and see which one is greater. So if computer die is greater than user die, right, then that means that the computer die won that turn, right? So if the computer die won that turn, we let's create a variable that's going to keep track of how many times the computer won. Okay, so I'm going to create a variable. It's going to be an integer. I'm going to call it computer score. This is just a score as the loop is running, right? So computer score initially is 0 because before the game starts, everyone has a score of 0. I'm also going to create, well, I'll come back up here eventually once I get there, but now we are on the computer right now. So if the computer die is greater than the user die, then I'm going to add 1 to computer score. So computer score is going to be equal to what's already stored in computer score plus 1, right? So that means that computer score was 0. So if computer die is greater than user die, then 0, okay, computer score, which is 0, is going to be 1 is going to be added to that. So 1 plus 0 gives you 1. So now the computer score becomes 1. If the loop runs again and the computer die is still greater than the user die, computer score will hold 1. This is going to be 1 plus 1. It's going to be evaluated to 2, and 2 is going to be stored in computer store. So basically, each time the computer is greater than the user die, 1 is going to be added to the computer score. Now, if that's not the case, I'm going to create an else if condition. So else if the other way around, else if the user die is greater than the computer die, then now let's create another variable that's going to keep track of the user score. So int user score is going to be initially 0. But anytime the user die is greater than the computer die, typed it wrong way here, computer. Anytime the user die is anytime the user die is greater than the computer die, then let's go ahead and increase the user score, okay, by 1. So user score is going to be equal to user score, what's already stored in user score, plus 1. Now this can also be written as user score plus equals 1, okay, which means what is being added to user score is equal to 1, okay. What is being added to user score is equal to 1. Or you can say this, we are incrementing user score by 1, okay. You can read it that way. So you can write this computer score is equal to computer score plus 1 as what is being added to computer score is equal to 1, okay. You can do that, right? Or I just take it back to, but I just wanted to show you another way to write it. All right, so it's the same thing. All right, so now this is the case when computer die is greater than user die. This is the case when user die is greater than computer die. Now what if the computer die is not greater than the user die and then the user die is not greater than the computer die? Then that means they're equal. So else, I'm going to create an else. Now you can go ahead and just say else, because if the computer die is not greater than the user die and then the user die is not greater than the computer die, then they'll be equal. You can just say else, and then that, else will basically do whatever you put in the block when they're equal. Or you can go ahead and explicitly state that else if user die is equal to double equals to computer die. If you use double equals, it means you're comparing. If you use one equal, it means you're assigning what's on the right to what's on the left. Double equals is, are you asking, is user die, okay, the same as computer die? Is the content of computer die the same as the content of user die? This is when you're asking. So you can go ahead and then be clear about it and state it in a very explicit way, this way, or you can just say else, like I explained. You can just say else, because if it's not equal to, if computer die is not equal to user die, and user die is not if computer die is not greater than user die, and user die is not greater than computer die, then they're equal. So when they're equal, nothing happens. We don't want to go ahead and increment anything by 1 or increase anything by 1. Okay. All right. So one thing also we want to do is we want to we'll write something here, but when the computer wins, just for the meantime, just for that round, let's just state that the computer won. The computer won that round. So over here, I'm going to create a system. Well, first, let's go ahead and display a message first. So system, sorry about that. System.out.println. And I'm going to say computer 1, okay, 1, I'm going to say 10, and because I have turn in this variable turn, okay, turn is keeping track of which turn we are on, I can use a variable. So computer 1 turn, right? And then if the user 1 if the user 1 or if the user die is greater than the computer die, then let's display the same message, but this time let's say user 1 turn, right? But if they're not the same, if computer die is not greater than user die, and then if user die is not greater than computer die, then let's state that we have the variable. Let's say start with a string turn, right? Concatenate it this way and say turn. So turn is going to keep track of the turn. So if it's turn 1, it's going to say turn 1. I'm going to concatenate it with a string and say was a tie. So this way. So this is when they're both equal, right? And we are doing nothing. We are not adding anything. We're not increasing anything by 1. We're just displaying a message and doing nothing. So basically, this is going to keep track of who wins the most rounds or the most turns. So once we are done, we will have each competitor score, okay, stored here. So we're going to have the user score stored here. We're going to have the computer score stored here, right? So let's just compare the two and see who was the grand winner, because the program said that as a loop iterate, the program should keep count of the number of times the computer wins and the number of times that the user wins, right? So those will be stored in user score and a computer score, right? After the loop performs all its iterations, so now we are outside the loop now. We are outside the loop, so the cursor is outside the loop now. This is the last closing brace of the loop. So now I'm outside the loop where the cursor is right now. So after the loop performs all its iterations, the program should display who was the grand winner, the computer or the user. Since we have the user score stored here and the computer score stored here, we can compare and see whose score is greater, and then display the winner, right? So I'm going to create an if statement right after the for loop and compare the two scores and say if computer score is greater than user score, right? And then we want to display a message. I think I still have it copied. Yeah. Then let's display a message and say computer was the grand winner. So computer was the grand winner. Okay. Winning. And we have the computer score, right? So we can say computer score. Winning computer score, we have the value stored in the variable. And computer score will basically keep track of how many times the computer won, how many turns the computer won out of the 10 rounds, right? We have 10 rounds stored in total number of. So we have 10 turns. Okay, 10 turns. 10 turns stored in total number of turns. And your computer score is just keeping track of how many turns the computer won, if indeed the computer won. All right. I mean, even if the computer didn't win, the computer score is keeping track of how many times the computer won, right? So we can go ahead and use that variable and say computer was the grand winner, winning. Okay, computer score, which is going to keep track of the computer score. I'm going to concatenate it with a string and say out of. We have the total number of turns stored here, right? So I can say total out of total number of turns this way. All right, and I'm going to concatenate it with another string. Now, because I don't want to exceed and keep scrolling and scroll horizontally, I'm going to break this on a new line after the plus, like this. So computer was a grand winner, winning computer score, which is going to keep track of the computer score. If it's 7, it's going to say winning 7 out of, the total number of turns is 10, so it's going to say winning 7 out of 10, right? 10 space turns, right? Okay. So this is keeping track of the computer score, and this is just holding how many the total number of turns. So this is when the computer wins. Okay, if the computer wins, this is the message that's going to display. Now, if the computer doesn't win, so else if, right? Else if the user score is greater than the computer score, right? Then let's go ahead and display another message, customized message, and say that user was the grand winner, winning user score is going to keep track of the user score, winning user score out of total number of turns. Okay, so the user score was 4, and so it's going to read user was the grand winner, winning 4 out of 10 turns. Okay, and then what if the computer score wasn't greater than the user score, and the user score wasn't greater than the computer score? Then that means it was a tie. That means that they both had equal scores, right? So else, so just like this case over here, if this is not true, and this is not true, then that means they have to be equal. Okay, so else, you can go ahead and also state else if, and also state explicitly that if computer score is equal to user score. Okay, now you're using double equals to compare, not to assign. If you use 1, you're assigning what's on the right to what's on the left. So you always want to use double equals, because if you do this, it's what you're asking is, were you able to assign the value in user score to computer score? It's going to result in true and going to do whatever is here. Okay, but you want to ask with 2 equals and say, is what's on the right, okay, is the content of the right content on the right equal to the content on the left? This is what you're asking now. And if that's the case, then you want to display a different message saying that let's see, you want to say we want to say it was a tie with computer it was a tie with computer winning, right? And we can just add the computer score, concatenate the computer score. Okay, concatenate the string to the computer score. So it was a tie with the computer, or with computer winning, computer score, and I'm going to concatenate it with tens, and user winning. I'm going to concatenate it and break it to the next line. So then user winning, let's see, and user winning, user score, turns, right? So it was a tie with the computer winning. If this is 4, it's going to say 4. It was a tie with the computer winning 4 turns and user winning if the user score was, let's say 2, and it's going to say, and user winning 2 tens, I'm going to say all out of. I'm going to concatenate it with the total number of 10. So all out of 10. Okay. So now we're done. We're done. So let's go ahead and compile it and see what happens. I'm going to compile it. I'm going to create a new folder for this one. I'm going to call it dice game. Oops, small letter. And then I'm going to save it. Oops, what's happening? Create a new, oops, hold on. Okay, and I'll save this. Okay, so we have a couple of errors. Let's see. Something is expected here. Okay, so, oh, all right. So over here, there was a string, and the next thing I just typed was the variable. I'm supposed to concatenate them. So I'm going to put a plus sign in between them and then compile it. I did the same thing here because I copied and pasted. So I'll concatenate. And over here. All right, so it cannot find symbol because over here we use computer die and user die. Okay, so we declared computer die and it could find we declared computer die and we use computer die over here. So it knew it. It knew that, oh, we declared it up here. But user die, we didn't declare it. There's no user die here, so it doesn't know what user die is. So let's go up here. After we declare computer die, let's go ahead and declare user die as well. And then compile it. And it works. All right, so let's run it and see what happens. So, all right, so I run it the first time. It says computer 1, turn 1. I want to separate, after it's basically done all the turns, I want to separate it here with a new line. And then say computer was the grand winner, All right, so it looks like it's working. I just want to separate it so we can see the difference. So after it's done displaying these who won each round, before it displays the grand winner, let's just go ahead and create a new line. I'm going to just create a new line here by just saying system.out.println. Right. Anytime you just type in something like this, it's going to display this string and then move the cursor to the next line like that. So basically it's going to display the string and then create a new line, or create the next line, a new line after that, right? But if you don't display anything, if you call the system.out.println and you don't display anything, it's going to print nothing, right, on that line, but still move the cursor to the next line. So basically, by printing nothing on that line, by printing nothing on that line, you're printing an empty line, basically. You're printing an empty line, and after you're done printing an empty line, because it's println, right, it's going to move the cursor to the next line. So everything that comes after that empty line, because you printed nothing in here, everything that comes after that empty line is going to display on the next line. Okay, the next line after that empty line. All right, so this is just basically going to create an empty line. I'm going to compile it and then run it again, and you can see over here that there's that empty line over here. All right. All right, sorry about that. All right, so these are the 10 rounds. It tells you who won and whether it was a tie, and then it tells us who was the grand winner. All right, so we can cross check. So it said the computer was a grand winner, winning 6 out of 10 tens, right? So let's see, over here computer 1, so that's 1, that's 2, 3, 4, okay, 4, 5, and 6. So that means computer 1, 6. Let's see, the user won 1, 2, and 3, right? And then there was one tie. It says 10, 1 was a tie. So it's correct. The computer won that round. So let's run it again. Okay, so now user was the grand winner, winning 6 out of 10 tens. Over here you can see user won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The computer won 1, 2, and 3. Okay, similar to the other one. And then turn 3 was a tie. Let's run it a couple more times. All right, computer was a grand winner, winning 6 out of 10. All right, it's funny how they're all winning 6 out of 10. All right. Let's see. Yeah, it's funny how they're all winning 6 anyway. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. User won 1, 2, 3, and then 10 9 was a tie. It's funny. Let's run it again. Okay, so now it says it was a tie with computer winning 4 turns and user winning 4 turns all out of 10. Let's see, computer 1, 2, 3, 4. User 1, 2, 3, 4. Turn 2 was a tie, and turn 9 was a tie. Okay, so run it again. Okay, so we're still getting 6 out of 10. Run it one more time. Okay, so now we're seeing something different. Winning 5 out of 10. 6 out of 10. 3 out of 10. Okay, it was a tie with them with 3, winning with both of them winning 3. Okay, so now computer was a grand winner with 8 out of 10 turns. So over here we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And user won twice. 1, 2. So we can see that this is working, and it's telling us the grand winner. All right. So if you have any questions, please comment down in the comment section, and I'll do everything to respond to them. Thank you very much for watching. Take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Have a great night. Have a good sleep. Have a nice time, and I'll see you next time with the next program. All right. Bye-bye.